In this video, we're going to talk about conditional statements in Python. In short, we use something called a conditional statement to run blocks of code, and this is a block of code below here. So we will run this code if the condition, which is the line up here, is true, or we will skip blocks of code if the condition up here is false. The keyword that starts the conditional statement is the if keyword, so it's a lowercase I and F. And you'll see this in many other coding languages. I know this is in C# as well. Conditional statements are actually pretty simple. It works pretty much like basic human logic. If something is true, then we run the code block. If something is not true or false, we skip the code block. So the program always runs up to down. So it would run the true, and then if the condition is false, it will skip the false, and if there was a bunch of lines here, it would just move on to the next bunch of lines. So I wrote a couple basic statements here just so you guys can get the hang of it. I want you to guess when I click run here, what is the program going to show in the output console? So knowing that we know that if a statement is true, it will run the code block, and if the condition is false, it's going to skip the code block. What is this Python program going to run? Okay, yeah, it's going to run the true block, and it's going to skip the false block. So if I hit run here, it's going to say, hello, nice to meet you, how is your day? And it's going to skip the this won't be printed. Let's try another one here. What is this going to print in the console? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. It's a very easy one, but we're trying to explain a concept here. And if you guessed, may the force be with you, you are correct. May the force be with you. So I wrote another one here. What's this one going to say in the console? Again, the condition is just generalized as true, so correct, it's going to print what is in the code block. Basketball is my favorite sport. I'm going to clear the console. I got another one here. What is it going to print in the console? I'm going to hit run. And if you guessed it, yes, nothing is going to print because the conditional statement is false. Okay, I got one more for you here. It's going to be a little more difficult. What is this going to print in the console? I'll give you a few seconds here. Okay, so the first statement is false. So it's not going to print the Heat won the finals in 2020. It's going to skip that code block, and it's going to move to the next code block, which is true, and it's going to print the Lakers won the finals in 2020. So I hit run, and there we go. The Lakers won the finals in 2020. Let's take a quick look at the syntax for a conditional statement. So as mentioned before, it starts with the if keyword. That's a lowercase I and F. And then it ends with a colon. So everything between the if keyword and the colon is going to be considered true or false. And if it's true, it's going to run the code block below. And if it's false, it's going to skip it. So that's the top of it. And then as you can see lower or below it, it's indented from the line. So the indent in Python tells you that this line is a part of this conditional statement. And if I was to delete this indentation and run the program, let's save it quick. As you can see in the console, we're going to get an error. And it's going to say expected an indented block. So that's why we have to indent here. The indentation tells the program that it's part of the statement. And if you were to move this down here and not indent it, you're still going to get an error. So the best thing to do is would be just to delete. Obviously, right here, you're trying to tell the program that you want to print this, and this if false statement is empty, so there's no point in it. You should just delete it altogether. Basically, the if statement needs to have a Boolean outcome. It needs to be true or false. which means that we can work with comparisons in our if statements. So let's take a look at this little program here. We have our simple variable, the date equals January 1st, and now we have our if statement. So remember the if keyword, lowercase I and f, and then it ends with a colon. And now whatever's in between this if statement, if it's true, it's going to run the block of code, and if it's false, it's going to skip it. So we use our comparison here. Date is equal to January 1st, it's going to print Happy New Year. So let's see what the program runs, and yes, it runs Happy New Year. Now we don't just have to use strings in our if statements, we can also use numbers and compare them to get a true or false value. So this is an example using a number. We have our variable water bottles and it equals 4, and then we have our if statement. So if water bottles is less than 5, and it's using that variable, and as you can see it is less than 5, so this if statement is true, it's going to print you need to drink more water today. And I'm going to run the program here, and there we go, it prints in the console, you need to drink more water today. If I were to come up and change water bottles to 6, therefore making this if statement false, I'm going to save this. What's going to happen in the console? We're going to clear the console here. Is it going to print you need to drink more water today? No, it's not going to print that because that if statement is false. All right, one last example for you guys here, just so you can demonstrate what you've learned in this video. I want you guys to guess what it's going to print in the output console. So we have our two variables at the top here. We have kilometers run equals 15 and kilometers walk equal 3. And we have two if statements. So if you need to, pause the video now and think what it's going to print out. If you guessed you ran 15 kilometers, great job, you are correct. And just to go over it here, the first if statement, if kilometers walk is greater than 3, it's going to print this. And as you can see, the kilometer walk is exactly 3, so it's not greater than 3. So that will be a false if statement. And the second statement, if kilometers run is equal, and remember the two equal sign means is exactly equal to 15, which it is, it's going to print you ran 15 kilometers, great job. So that is a true conditional statement, and therefore it skips the first block and runs the second block. In the next video, we're going to dive deeper into conditional statements, and we're going to look at else and elif. So it's just an add-on to these if statements. So I will see you then.